Today's video is going to be about a method that narcissists use either consciously or unconsciously that can keep us traumatically bonded and very confused within the relationship. I initially wanted to do this video on how narcissists view mistakes and the mistakes that you make specifically. But the more that I fleshed out this idea, the more complex it got, and I realized that this wasn't going to be a simple video. So in today's video, I want you to think about the way that you feel when you make a mistake in a relationship with a narcissistic person. And if after you make that mistake, you feel this need to brace yourself for the unknown, like you're not sure how this person's going to react. That right there is the result of assumptions that are actually based on a lot of lies and illusions. And in today's video, I want to shine some truth on the illusions and lies that narcissists use to control us, especially when we make mistakes. Welcome to Looking Behind the Mirror, where we explore narcissism and take our lives back as we make sense out of nonsense. As a quick disclaimer, everything I say is based on my opinions and my personal experiences. I'm not a professional, and if you're really struggling, I encourage you to seek professional help. I am providing links below for you. The first thing I want to address is the idea that narcissists can't handle any of your mistakes. This was the assumption that I started this outline with that quickly fell apart. I think a lot of you watching would probably agree with the idea that any mistake you make is the end of the world. The narcissist is going to flip out and never forgive you over any little mistake you make. You can't make mistakes with narcissists. But that's not really true. It's actually a lot more complicated and confusing than that. The truth is, if you really think about it, with almost any relationship with a narcissistic person, it's not that every mistake is the end of the world. It's that every mistake could be the end of the world, but you really don't know. You might do something today that they flip out over, throw a tantrum over, and then tomorrow you do something even worse and they don't even seem to notice. Or maybe they're even nice about it and they seem to be so forgiving and understanding over something that's worse than something that they flipped out over yesterday. It's very confusing. It's very unpredictable. It creates a very unsafe, walking on eggshells feeling within the relationship. It's not so simple to say that a narcissist is going to flip out over every little mistake you make. If it was that simple, we wouldn't be so confused and we wouldn't be drawn into these traumatic bonds that are really based on unpredictable punishments and rewards. I also want to address the idea that the narcissist is responding to your mistakes. We assume this. When a narcissist flips out over something that we did, we perceive it as a mistake we've made that they're flipping out over. But in reality, the narcissist is often punishing us for something we haven't actually done. So, for example, when a narcissist gives you the silent treatment for 3 or 4 days, you assume you did something. They must be upset with you over something, when in reality, you didn't do anything. You didn't make a mistake. You're being punished for something that didn't actually happen. And this just adds more to the confusion because you're being punished for mistakes you've made, right? But then you're being forgiven for other mistakes. And there's no way for you to predict which is which. On top of this, you're being punished for things you didn't do, for mistakes that never even happened. And this makes it even more confusing, more unpredictable, and is part of what is known as intermittent reinforcement, which is an unpredictable, random series of punishments and rewards. An example of intermittent rewards might be something like when you're in a relationship with a narcissistic person. Let's say that there was an occasion in which you made them a cheesecake. Maybe it was a holiday of some sort, a get together. And they just raved over this and they just couldn't stop talking about what an awesome cook you were and how much work you went to, and they were giving you attention and affection and appreciation because of this cheesecake you made, right? And then let's say a few months go by And because of the nature of the relationship, you are feeling really ignored, hurt, empty. There's a big lack of affection and attention from this narcissistic person. And maybe somebody's birthday comes, maybe it's the narcissist's birthday, and you think, last time I made that cheesecake, I got all this affection and attention. Surely if I do it again, that'll work. That will get me these things that I am desperately craving, these things that I'm not getting out of this relationship. And this thing I know is possible, that's really going to light up all the dopamine receptors in my brain. So you make the cheesecake again, but this time there's barely any reaction at all. And this is really confusing and frustrating. For people with healthy emotional boundaries and people that are getting their needs met in other relationships, this should be a cue to stop trying to make this person happy. Stop making cheesecakes for this person. But for somebody who's emotionally dependent on the relationship, who's not getting their needs met elsewhere, who is developing a trauma bond, this just controls the victim more, and it makes them want to make more cheesecakes and find different ways to try to hit that goal, to try to hit that jackpot where they're getting the affection and attention again. And it's intermittent and unpredictable. And because it's intermittent and unpredictable, it exerts more control over the victim than it would if it was predictable. And this works the same way with punishments. When you can't predict whether or not you're going to be punished for mistakes you make or don't make, or they think you make, it really keeps you on your toes, and it keeps you traumatically bonded to this person, because when you make a mistake and they don't flip out on you, you have a very distorted idea of what that means. You might feel like they're being very generous and kind when really they're just being reasonable, and they're being reasonable in an intermittent, unpredictable way. So you give them much more credit for things that are just part of being a basically decent human being. And the dopamine receptors light up in your brain when this person isn't yelling and screaming at you because of a little mistake you made. So this is really how intermittent punishment and rewards can control you as a narcissistic abuse victim into continuing to try to make this person happy and continuing to try to be good enough to deserve those rewards and to avoid those punishments, when in reality, you really don't have any control over any of it. But I also want to talk about in this video the ways that narcissists treat your honest mistakes as though they are intentional crimes against them. And then I'm going to tie all of this together into what all of these mistakes actually mean, and how there's even more misunderstanding, false assumptions, and illusions that keep you under control, even more so than what I've talked about. So first of all, why do narcissists view your honest mistakes as though they are intentional crimes committed against them? Sometimes, right? Sometimes they barely even notice the mistakes you make, right? But sometimes the honest mistakes you make are treated as though they are intentional crimes. First of all, narcissists have black and white thinking, which I've talked a lot about on this channel. So there's no gray area. There's no degree of mistakes or crimes. There's nothing that's like really, really bad, kind of bad, sort of bad, kind of annoying, not so big of a deal, and oh, that's fine, no big deal. Everything is either a horrible, unforgivable crime that makes you a worthless human being, or a wonderful, amazing, flawless, wonderful thing. There's nothing in between. Narcissists have extremely black and white thinking. So any mistake you make is all the way over here. Always, period. There's nothing in between. Every mistake you make is an unforgivable crime, because there's no degree under that. In addition to that, narcissists are always looking for excuses to blame you for the way they feel about themselves and for anything that goes wrong in their life. They are looking for excuses to shame you so that they can feel better about themselves. In addition to that, narcissists feel betrayed by accidents, because narcissists have a very distorted view of how the world works. They really feel like everything happens because of them. They feel like they're the center of the universe. They feel like if you're having dinner with them and you spill your drink on the table, that you did that because of them. That was related to them. They really can't conceive of the idea that something that affects them in any way wasn't done specifically for them because of them. So when any accident of any kind affects them in any way, it's all about them. It happened because of them. You did it on purpose to inconvenience them. Because why else would anything ever even happen? Nothing happens outside of their existence having nothing to do with them. Everything is all about them. That's another reason that they view your honest mistakes as intentional crimes. Here you go. Go on. On top of this, they have a huge lack of empathy. So if you do something that's an honest mistake, but it annoys them or inconveniences them, and they feel like yelling at you, or they feel like cutting you down and making you feel like dirt for doing it, there's nothing that's going to stop them from doing that as far as empathy goes. There's no little voice that says, oh, I'm really annoyed. I want to yell at this person, but I better not because it will really hurt them and they don't really deserve that because this was an honest mistake. First, they don't see it as an honest mistake because they believe that everything happens because of them. And second, they don't have any empathy for you. So they don't care if their reaction hurts you because they're upset and they have a right to unleash that upsetness on you. And this is because of their entitlement, which is another reason that they do this. They feel extremely entitled to everything they want. If they had a vision of how the night was supposed to go and you spilled your drink on the table and ruined what they were entitled to, now they have a right to unleash on you and vent all their frustrations and make you feel 2 inches tall because you ruined what they were entitled to. And you must have done it on purpose, and they don't have any empathy for how much they're hurting you, and they don't care if it was an honest mistake because there's no such thing as honest mistakes when it involves them. And when it comes to that event or that dinner or whatever that they felt entitled to that you ruined, they had unrealistic expectations for that in the first place because they have unrealistic, grandiose expectations for everything that they feel entitled to. They have extremely distorted ideas of what they should expect from you and life in general. And when your honest mistake messes up things that could have never met their expectations in the first place, they feel entitled to teach you a lesson, punish you, and cut you down. So these are the reasons that narcissists will treat your honest mistakes as if they were intentional crimes, because in their head, they were. Any mistake that you make is either something you did on purpose to spite them, or something that proves that they're better than you. And if this mistake is something that proves that they're better than you, they might also react in a way in which they tear you down and shame you and criticize you because they're really getting a charge out of this proof that they're superior to you. And just like a bully, they're going to peck at you and tear you down. But in this case, if they're perceiving your mistake as something that proves that they're better than you, they might also react by being really nice, like with the attitude of, oh, that's okay that you did that, you little idiot. And if this reaction is abnormally nice coming from them, you're going to misinterpret this as meaning that they are a wonderfully generous, kind person, when really they're just reacting in a reasonable way. Now, I want to also talk about how confusing all of this is when you assume you're in a normal relationship with somebody who's being reasonably honest with you, especially if you're with somebody who's gaslighting you. So now I'm going to talk about an experience that I've recently talked about in my last video and that I bring up quite a lot, but I'm going to go into a little more detail. And that's the story of the time I bought the wrong hot dogs. This was a long time ago and my memory of it is a little fuzzy, but I was with a partner who, in my view, was extremely narcissistic, and we must have had a barbecue or something. This was like 15 years ago, I think. I had to go to the store to buy some hot dogs. And as far as I understood, these were supposed to be Oscar Mayer hot dogs, right? And so I bought some hot dogs, and I didn't realize that there are normal Oscar Mayer hot dogs, and then there are Oscar Mayer beef flavored hot dogs, right? Well, when I got the hot dogs home, I was quickly informed that I was supposed to get the Oscar Mayer beef hot dogs, and that the reason I didn't is because I never listen. I'm self-absorbed. I'm caught up in my own little world. I never think about anybody else except for myself. You name it, right? And I felt terrible. Like, oh my gosh, how could I make such a terrible mistake? I'm a terrible self-absorbed human being that never thinks about anybody else because I got the wrong kind of hot dogs. Now, this particular incident could be viewed in a lot of different ways depending on its context. I will never know for the rest of my life. I will never know if I actually was told to get beef hot dogs, but I just wasn't listening. Or if this person that I was with never told me to get the beef hot dogs. Maybe he forgot to tell me, or maybe he didn't tell me on purpose, because this particular person was the kind of person who would deliberately play mind games. Not all narcissists are deliberate in this way, but this particular person would deliberately create situations where he could then play mind games with me. So he might have purposefully not told me to get the beef kind, with the plan of telling me later that he had and that I never listened. But I will never know if that's what happened. I'll never know if I was being gaslit or not, which is one of the huge problems with being gaslit, is you don't know if you're being gaslit, even if you're wondering if you're being gaslit, right? Also, in a normal, healthy relationship, these kinds of things might happen. Maybe I really did need to practice listening better. Maybe in a normal relationship, one person feels like they're always telling their partner, hey, will you get beef flavored hot dogs, or will you get this thing or that thing or whatever, and they feel like their partner's never listening to them. Maybe the last straw on a pile of things that the partner is making the partner feel ignored is they ask their partner to get beef flavored hot dogs and they come back with the wrong kind, and maybe that's the last straw. And maybe it's reasonable for that partner to complain that their partner never listens to them. You never listened to me. I told you to get the beef flavored hot dogs, and this is like the 100th time this has happened. Why don't you listen to what I'm saying? And of course, if you are the victim of narcissistic abuse, you are made to assume that this is the scenario, that you're in a healthy relationship with somebody who has good intentions, and they are genuinely frustrated with your inability to listen to them or do what they want or whatever. And so this can be extremely confusing. Like I said, I'll never know if my partner actually did tell me to get beef hot dogs and I just wasn't listening. But where we can draw the difference between just a bad experience in a normal relationship and a pattern of abuse, a pattern of completely exaggerating and blowing out of proportion honest mistakes, is in my situation with these hot dogs, there was no forgiveness to be had. In a normal relationship, especially if the partner who is the one who is forgetting to get the right hot dogs, the one who never listens, if that partner genuinely wants to learn to listen better, and that partner genuinely is apologizing, asking for forgiveness, and trying to repair the relationship, that should be received. That is something that should be used to repair the relationship in a normal relationship. But in my case, there was no forgiveness to be had. I had committed an unforgivable crime, and that would be held over my head indefinitely for the rest of all time. And there was no way for me to redeem myself. That is one thing that can separate a healthy relationship from a narcissistically abusive relationship. Another thing that can separate the two is the frequency of something like this. If you're frequently confused, So if this was one time where I thought, did he tell me to get beef hot dogs? I don't remember that. That is potentially normal. Maybe I just really wasn't listening. But if that happens all the time, and I'm constantly thinking to myself, I don't remember him telling me to wash the windows that way. I don't remember him telling me not to put this type of thing in the dishwasher. I don't remember that. Like, I must be losing my mind. When you're feeling like that a lot, that's a pattern that's not part of a healthy relationship. And the more that happens, the more likely it is that you're actually being gaslit and you're not actually making these mistakes. Which really brings me to the main point of this video, and that is that it has nothing to do with whether or not you're actually making mistakes. The way a narcissist views and punishes you for your mistakes is based solely on their perception of what's happening. And a narcissist has no perception of you and your perception. They have no comprehension, no idea of your experience, and they don't care. They don't care what your intentions really were. They don't even have a concept of that. They don't care if you meant to get the right or wrong type of hot dogs. They don't care if you meant to spill your drink on the dinner table, because they will decide based on their emotions what you meant to do, and that is the only thing that's real to them. So that's why you will be punished for things that you never even did, and why you will be severely punished for little things you did, and then things that are even worse, they'll just completely ignore, because it has nothing to do with anything you're doing. It's based solely on the narcissist's mood and perception. You have no control over that. It's like you're sitting at a slot machine and you're pushing the button over and over again, okay? But let's change this a little. Let's pretend that sometimes the slot machine gives you a jackpot, but sometimes the slot machine gives you an electric shock, okay? And it's completely random, as a slot machine is completely random. And you sit there and push the button. There's going to be a time when you push the button and you get a jackpot. In a narcissistic relationship, you are going to assume that it was something to do with you and the way you pushed that button. And if you can just figure out how to do that again, you're going to get more jackpots. And the narcissist backs this up with their gaslighting and their manipulation and their intermittent jackpots that they give you. They make you think that you somehow caused this, that there was something you did, when in reality it was completely random. This also works. Let's say you hit the button and you get the electric shock. You think you caused this because you're the one that pushed the button. You're the one who caused the narcissist to flip out on you and throw a tantrum because you're the one who spilled your drink, right? But in reality, you spilling that drink is just the button being pushed. It's completely random. It has nothing to do with anything you're doing. You feel responsible, you feel a sense of control over it, but it has nothing to do with what you're doing. It's just the more time that goes by, the more buttons are being pushed, the more things happen, because as time goes by, as life is lived, things happen. Things are going to happen. And so the more time that goes by, the more chances you're going to run into that you're going to trigger that jackpot or you're going to trigger that electric shock. When in reality, the narcissist was waiting to give you an intermittent reward for whatever reason. And the narcissist was waiting to punish you for their own reasons, for their own emotional reasons. And everything you did, every breath you took, every word you said, every drink you spilled or wrong hot dogs you bought was just another push of that button that gave them the opportunity to do the thing they already wanted to do. So if you're sitting at dinner and you spill your drink and they start telling you what a loser you are, and they throw a tantrum and cut you down and make you feel 2 inches tall, they already wanted to do that. Just like a slot machine is ready to give you that jackpot, they're just waiting for somebody to come push the button. The narcissist was already waiting for an opportunity to unleash on you, and you had nothing to do with that. And the bottom line in this video is to stop trying to frame a relationship like this in a normal assumption that you have anything to do with and you have any control over the way a narcissist perceives what you're doing, because a narcissist is lost in their own head. And the way they feel and the way they treat you has nothing to do with what you're doing. It has to do with what they're imagining you're doing, whether it has any bearing on anything that actually happened or not. You are not in control of the punishments and the rewards. You can't count on the fact that if you make another cheesecake, you're going to be rewarded for it. You can't count on the fact that if you spill your drink again, you're going to be yelled at again. You can't count on any of this. None of it's predictable, and it's all designed to keep you pushing that button, to keep you sitting at that slot machine, trying to make this person happy, when in reality, the only thing you have control over is your ability to get up and stop playing the game. No one deserves to be treated this way, even if they spill their drink at dinner, even if they get the wrong kind of hot dogs. Nobody deserves to be treated this way. Nobody deserves to be walking on eggshells, constantly wondering if what they're doing is good enough or if what they're doing is going to get them a huge punishment. Nobody deserves to live life nervously wondering when the next tantrum is going to erupt. When you honestly want to create a healthy relationship with somebody who won't forgive your honest mistakes and who sees mistakes in things that haven't even happened, it's not your fault. And it's not your responsibility to control the moods and the whims and the perceptions of somebody who's completely lost in their own world. I hope this helps. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and comment below any ideas you have for me for future videos. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you like this video and would like to see more like it in the future. Until next time, thanks. Bye.